You know the goal setting basics. You've got to set goals, you've got to write them down, you got to look at them daily. You know about SMART goals, right? They got to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And all of that's great. I'm not saying it's wrong, but goals alone are not going to get you anywhere. And it's funny because I've read a lot of productivity books and business books and management books and things like that. And a lot of them refer to this 1953 Yale study. And they say 3% of the class had written goals and concrete plans, 13% just had written goals, and 84% didn't have goals at all. Well, 10 years later, the 13% were earning twice as much as the 84%, and the 3% were making 10 times as much. There you have it. Write down your goals and you'll be rich. Roll credits. End of video. But there's one thing that's kind of funny about that. That study doesn't actually exist. It probably never happened. Let's talk about goals and helping your kids to set goals, and we'll talk a little bit more about that study. Let's get started. Please subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, our travel journey around the world. We publish a new video every week. So that 1953 Yale study probably never existed. I can put a link below to the source on that. More so, like, you have to actually find the study. So the burden of proof is on the person trying to prove the study does exist. Find evidence and put it in the comments. Put a link to it if you have it. But fortunately, there was a 1979 Harvard MBA business school study that said basically the exact same thing. And this has been quoted in many books as well. But that study probably doesn't exist either. We've figured that out. So why do we have all these fake studies in these books? The reason these studies were so well accepted is because they make sense. Everyone accepted it because they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like you have a clear path. Obviously, you're going to do better. It makes sense that clear direction leads to more success. And while that does seem to be true, I think the general mindset came out to be that as long as you write your goals down, you're going to be successful and you're going to do really well. But of course, the fact is, if you only write your goals down and you stop there, then you're already failing because you're doing absolutely nothing but writing your goals down. And I'm not trying to share some new secret here. I'm actually being really practical here. I'll explain. Goals don't get you anywhere. They show you where you want to go, but they don't get you anywhere. And I think it's good to have goals, but we cannot stop with the goals because the goals are not going to do anything on their own. They're just going to sit there, written down or not. So first, let's talk about what everything I talk about comes back to, and what I think a lot of life in general, and whether it's financial practice or business or with your children or whatever, it all comes back to mindset. The Magic of Thinking Big. The Magic of Thinking Big is the title of one of my favorite books. It's pretty easy to guess what it's about thinking big, and big thinking isn't instilled in children like it should be. We tell our kids they can have anything they want, they can be anything they want, they can do anything they want, and then graduation approaches and we start to tell them about the real world being realistic, how they need to think about their future, and maybe even how they need to go to college and get good grades to be successful. But a lot of times we say this with kind of a safe, comfortable tone, and honestly a very low bar of expectations. So let your kids think big, even if they're in preschool or if they're in high school. Let your kids think big. Don't squash that thinking. And go read The Magic of Thinking Big. It'll change your life. Seriously. But goals plus big thinking is still not going to get you anywhere. So what are we talking about here? What should your kids be focused on? And finally, that brings us to systems. Systems, not goals. Goals aren't bad. The problem is it's difficult to set goals because we're not always sure what we're capable of. Oftentimes we limit ourselves with our goals. That happens more often than the opposite, which I guess would be setting goals that are way too high and out of our reach. You can set a goal, for example, to write a book. You can even set a SMART goal to write a 250-page New York Times best-selling book about breeding golden retrievers by December 31st, 2022. But what does that do? It gives you a direction, a clear direction to head. But it doesn't do anything for you. You have to do the work. This is where systems come in. And systems work whether you set goals or not. Goals give you a lot more to look forward to, but systems are a lot more important than goals, because you can have systems without goals and be successful, but if you have goals without systems, nothing's going to happen. This does kind of come back to habits, like we just recently talked about it at a couple videos on, but it's systems. So carrying on in this example of writing a book. Your goal may be to write that book, but your system is writing for 2 hours at a specific time in a specific place every single day. It's easy to say you want to write a book, which is what a goal would be, but it's a lot harder to actually put the system in place, put in the work every single day. A lot of creativity in general, whether it's writing books or being in a band or like making music or doing art, involves a lot of discipline, and a lot of the best creators probably are never going to create anything because they don't have the discipline to see it through. And with our writing example, any of the most successful writers will tell you that writing a certain amount of pages every day is the most important habit towards writing a book. Setting goals are great, but if you don't have a system in place of what you're going to do every single day, and it's similar to a goal with it being very specific, you say where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what's going to happen. But it needs to be set in stone that you have that system that will take you to your goal. That'll also help you see how realistic your goal is. For example, if you do set a writing goal and figure out that the system to meet your timeline would mean you have to write 10,000 words a day, that's not realistic. You would have to change your goal based on your system. How do we help kids build systems? Kids already have systems. They eat at regular times, they brush their teeth at regular times, hopefully. They bathe, hopefully, at regular times. They may even have a regular playtime or a regular reading time. And of course, the famous nap time that we're all jealous of. All of those are systems. And the easiest way to keep track of systems, whether they're for you or for your child, is to write them down. I don't necessarily see a whole lot of benefit in writing your goals down every single day, but I do see a benefit in practicing your systems every single day and maybe journaling every day to see the progress and to see if you need to make any adjustments to your system. And your kids can do this too. So how do you get started teaching your kids about this? How do you get started for yourself? Well, you would get started simply by writing this down, figuring out your system based on your goal, or just starting a system. If you want to be healthier, having a system of running or exercise or a system of eating is going to get you a lot farther than having a goal with no system in place to achieve that goal. But for your kids, it's going to help as they get older, whenever they learn what they want to be. If they want to be a professional athlete, then their systems are going to include a lot of exercise and things like that. If they want to get into a certain college, then their systems are going to include a lot of scholarship writing or a lot of maybe just homework for the time being and work in school to get a certain grade and a certain GPA to get into the college they want to get into. And to implement all of these systems and to help your kids do it and for you to do it and for you to have your personal and free time and those systems and for you to have the family systems, all these systems, it's going to help a lot to have a weekly schedule. I did a video on that I'll link there, but just kind of planning everything. And the more you plan, the freer you'll be, because you know exactly what's going to happen and you don't have to worry about anything. And finally, how to balance goals and systems. Goals aren't that important if you have a solid system in place. For example, if you're writing for 2 hours a day or you're writing a certain amount of pages every day, and we're going back to the book example, you're going to have a finished book in front of you in a certain amount of time. Now the goal might make you work a little harder if you set a deadline so you can crunch it and you kind of have a better idea of where you're going, because they do show you where you're going, so they are very important, but you would still get there with just the system and not the goal. So I'm not telling you not to set goals. I think goals are important. I just don't think they are as important as the systems that reach the goals. They're both important, and they work really well together. So help your kids to understand that. Maybe show them how to set some SMART goals that we talked about earlier. Set goals, but then show them the importance of the systems that are going to get them to those goals. So the goals gives them a clear direction, and the systems builds the discipline to make the goal happen. Please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, our travel journey around the world, and check out my new book, Intentional Children. I will put a link to that below. That is all for today. I will see you next week.